I definitely do appreciate the opportunity. So TCG, thank you for the platform. Super excited to talk to you about website security and what it means for you and certainly what it means for your clients. My name is Tom Serrani. I'm Executive Vice President of Global Channels for SiteLock. I've been with SiteLock essentially from the beginning. With me today is Logan Kipp, our technical architect, our product guru, if you will. He'll be coming up here and taking a few of these slides if you guys want to go in more detail with our product set. Also with us today is Jeff Dyer, who's part of our elite channel account management team. I'll tell you another added bonus being out here this week is I'm from Boston. You might have picked up a slight little accent, and the weather has been absolutely atrocious. A few days in Fort Lauderdale, I was like, what do you sign? Sign me up, I'm in. They had me sold at hello. I wanted to go over SiteLock at a very high level. I'm not sure the visibility this group has with website security in general. So we're going to touch on that. I also want to give you visibility into the security landscape. What does that look like? What's the appetite out there? What are the benefits associated with website security? Certainly go into detail on our product range, the different categories that we play in. And it is a wide range from detection to remediation to prevention to compliance. And we'll walk through all of those and what that opportunity looks like. And of course, most important, the program itself and what's in it for you. A couple quick questions, if you don't mind, before I go into this. Has anyone heard of SiteLock prior to today? Okay, a couple folks. Okay, that's great. And another question, how many of you are actually selling some form of security, doesn't have to be website security, through your portfolio today? Okay, so there's a few. I mean, that's what gets me excited, right? Because I think after you go through this presentation, you're going to see there's a massive opportunity for you to differentiate and go out there and expand your portfolio, adding website security, which is essential and critical to your customers. And if you're serving as that trusted advisor, I think that's going to be absolutely well received. Again, not to mention to be able to differentiate, increase your ARPU, resulting in more money in your pocket. So SiteLock is a website security firm specifically designed to provide a one-stop shop delivering a cost-effective website security solution. Again, anything from finding issues, fixing issues in a rapid manner, and we do that in an automated fashion, which we'll talk into detail, preventing these issues from happening, and compliance. That one-stop shop theme is extremely important to us. We protect small businesses and enterprises from data breaches, malware, and online threats. Our comprehensive approach to cybersecurity ensures that business owners, I don't care what size you are, can focus on their operations as opposed to deploying and installing software. Security is extremely complex, and it's changing on a daily basis, if not an hourly basis. So we're looking for people to partner with experts. That's all they do. We're very disciplined about that. We don't want to be the best at everything. We don't want to boil the ocean. Well, we want to be the best at website security specifically. We were founded in 2008. We have over 250 employees today. We'll probably exceed 300 relatively easily by the end of the year. We have 12 million paid customers, and we'll talk about that. So it's a large number, right? How we did that at scale, what is the go-to-market strategy in the upcoming slide. We're boarding approximately 100,000 customers on a monthly basis. And I think what gives us a massive advantage in the marketplace is the sheer access of data that we have at our fingertips. I mean, 12 million customers that we're scanning on a daily basis, over 200 million pages on a daily basis that we're scanning. We're blocking almost 4 million threats. And there's 100,000 customers on a monthly basis that are being compromised and are looking at SiteLock to get them up as fast as possible to mitigate that business disruption. Massive, massive need. And the other thing I'll touch on is a recent acquisition that we made with Patchman. They were out of the Netherlands. Great addition to our portfolio. It fills the gap when it comes to being able to patch vulnerabilities on the fly. A huge need and a huge issue for website owners today. What it also allows us to do, not only deploy a cloud-based solution, now we have the option to also deploy a server-based. And when we get into the product itself, and if you have questions, we can go into that in a little bit more detail. So to date, we historically went through the mass market channel, completely channel focused. We have been, that's where we cut our teeth, that's where our relationships have been. That channel that we've gone down, these service providers, traditionally mass market hosting providers, like One-on-One, a Web.com, a GoDaddy, an Endurance International Group. These partners have access to tens of millions of online business owners that certainly need security solutions. And we're thoroughly embedded, throughout their entire boarding process in a variety of different touch points so we can make sure that we touch that customer with the right product at the right time. And that's been extremely successful for us. It's also helped us seed the market, that kind of Trojan horse approach, as well as elevate our brand profile, resulting in us to be able to pivot and get into that mid-market enterprise space where we want to live. Because a lot of these customers that we're boarding, it's literally with the click of a button. They're being asked, it's being bundled into services. We provide a very easy way, an automated way to get these guys to upgrade through the different products that we offer at a higher ARPU. Here's a sample of roster of both our partners and our certainly end users. I think the important takeaway here, if you look at TCG, which is a new partner for us, there is not another master agent on this slide. Again, we've been down the hosting space, very disciplined in doing that. We have some telcos, we have some SSL providers, but we feel that this is a huge opportunity for us, and we do have some visibility to that. If you look at Nextiva. Nextiva, up to yesterday, was a sister company of SiteLock. Again, for many, many years, owned by the same investment group. We actually were just acquired yesterday in a very positive way by Abry Partners. So we just stepped away from Nextiva, but we had a lot of discussions and conversations on what does that market look like, how does that lend to security, who are the partners to make sense to kind of talk to and open up that dialogue. TCG, one of the first ones that rolled off their lips, the fact that we could sit down with these guys and they got it. Well organized, a great team, and they thought outside the box to say, we're missing this. I mean, we think our agents, our team will absolutely love this, differentiate, increase their ARPU, an opportunity to put more money in their pocket, an opportunity to go back to their customers and say, I got something for you. And it's not these traditional services I've been offering, which are great, it's something different. You obviously, hopefully take that relationship to the next level, because let me tell you something, they're getting these services and solutions from someone else. And it might start off with website security, but it could bleed over to the services that you're providing them. So if we can open up that breadbox, certainly we want to help. If you look at some of the stats today, the landscape in general continues to change in a very sophisticated and dynamic manner. I mean, it's extremely hard to catch up unless that's all you're doing. If you think about the patterns and the shifts of the security threats in the past, they were typically lending to go to the network or the endpoint, which are a little bit easier to lock down. Over the last couple of years, that has absolutely pivoted. And now you have people, cyber criminals, trying to actually deploy malware through unsuspected websites. And using that as a force of attack, it's very easy to monetize. You got to remember, cyber criminals value an ROI just like all of us. And this is the easiest way that they can actually get their malware onto these websites and push it out and monetize off of it, as well as applications. There are 18 million infected sites on a daily basis. That's 1% of the overall websites in the marketplace today. So it's like 1.8 billion. That's conservative. People think it could even be about 2%. So that number is staggering. Massive opportunity. 86% of websites out there have a vulnerability. Doesn't mean they're infected, but guess what? It means they have a gap in their security policy, and it's only a matter of time until something happens. These are perfect opportunities to go out there, engage, leverage us to educate that customer, evaluate their security policy, and help drive the right solution that makes sense for that customer. Another interesting stat, 60% of sites that get infected will get reinfected within 3 months. It's just a stat, it happens. Once they know there's a hole, they have these automatic bots that they run in their program, and they'll continue to pepper your site until it gets breached again. Another interesting stat, small businesses, if they get breached and they're infected and experience downtime, they will, in 6 months, 60% of those businesses will go out of business, period, a small business. Larger enterprises, different story. If an individual is compromised, whether it be an email address or a credit card, they will never shop at that website again. Folks, the stakes are extremely high. And some other stats here, I don't want to go through all of them, you can obviously see them. So who needs website security? The simple answer is Absolutely everyone. I might be a little biased, but that is actually the reality of it. I don't care if you're a small business, Soho business, an agency, an e-commerce, nonprofit, enterprise. You need some form of security. I don't know what it is. Once we actually understand what your online requirements are, we can actually come up and design a program that works for you. Smaller companies, they might just want a basic alarm system. As you go up that stack, those people need a much more advanced security solution in place to potentially mitigate, a DDoS attack, which will bring them to the knees and cause significant pain, not just from loss to customer or loss to revenue, but the brand reputation can take a significant hit. So again, our whole goal out of the gate was to make sure that we don't only just detect, malware. That's where we started, and we've evolved significantly over the years since 2008. But when you're just finding malware and notifying people, you're like the Grim Reaper. No one likes you. You let them know something's bad, whether it's your fault or not. So our goal was always to try to get ahead of the issue. And over the years, I think we did a really good job coming up with a pretty comprehensive one-stop shop that allows customers and partners to be able to have, it was referenced in the last presentation, that one throat to choke. So with detection, it's about identifying malware as soon as possible, real time. When people get blacklisted, which happens all the time, they're already experiencing business disruption. With our technology, because of the sheer massive database that we have over 10 million signatures in our threat database. So we're finding things that Google isn't. Almost 50% of the time. Why? Because they're not a security company. We are. So we're also going to be able to get ahead of the issue before they actually experience some disruption from even being blacklisted. So extremely important. Vulnerabilities. The ability to give you tools to identify your security posture, understand where are the holes, and how can we help fill those holes before something bad happens. As I mentioned, it's not a matter of if you get attacked, these websites, it's a matter of when, and it's going to happen. It's not slowing down, it's only getting more aggressive and more sophisticated.
How do you ensure PCI compliance?
So we are part of the process with PCI. The SAQ questionnaire that they fill out, that they have to run online business as part of a PCI process, we automate like 80% of that process, make it very easy for businesses to do. They still will need the other components like going on site. We're not doing that traditional on-site professional services. And when Logan comes up here, he'll go in more detail if that doesn't address your question.
No, I just say because we do our, in our company, the PCI compliance auditors. So meaning we are part of the PCI Compliance Council.
Okay. Okay. Logan, do you want to add anything to that, or you want to wait till you come up here? Okay. Accelerating performance. This is really a secondary benefit. We're really focused on, obviously, web application firewall and security. Our WAF is delivered through the content delivery network. Still tangible benefits, right? Your website speed is increasing significantly. Page loads are increasing very quickly, so when consumers are going to that website, it's rapidly loading, which is trust, confidence. Consumers are very anxious, and I don't blame them. They don't know. If there's any little slight delay, if they're seeing something that looks somewhat suspicious, and you don't have an incredibly strong brand, you're at risk of potentially losing it. And not to mention the benefits of a content delivery network, because it's rapidly so fast, and it is SEO. Direct impacts into SEO. Compliance we just touched on a little bit. If you look on the stack to the left, want to give you a visual of where we play, because when we talk about website security or security in general, it's very easy to get lost. Are they doing network? Are they doing endpoint? Again, let me reiterate, we are specifically focused on the top left of the stack. It's website security, it's applications, it's servers, and it's databases.
Quick question. So when you say endpoint, are you meaning the firewall on site or the router?
No, I meant like we don't play in the endpoint game like email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause right there and bring Logan up, and we're going to go into detail about the product set, and certainly feel free to ask any questions.
So just to give you a better idea of what kind of space we play in, I'm actually on tee off following up on that PCI front. So in the PCI sphere, we're of course providing that self-assessment questionnaire, the SAQ. We have a brief pre-SAQ that we run to establish what they're going to fall under and whether they require additional scanning. If they are, for example, a level D, then we would provide the PCI scanning as well, so wherever required. Hope that answers your question there. But to jump to a little bit more of our bread and butter, what we made our name in, malware detection and remediation. So who here knows or has had their own website breach? No one wants to admit to it, right? So it's never happened, of course, naturally. This is extremely common these days. Websites are getting hacked. I'm sure you've all heard software like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal. There's a lot of folks using these, and there's a lot of pop-up websites, and we're seeing a lot of attacks leveraged against them. So where we play is we actually will go in, we'll scan that website, both from the outside and from the inside, to detect and automatically remove malware. And that's huge. That means that as soon as that is detected, we actually will go ahead and just surgically remove that malware infection. We support both HTTP and HTTPS. What that means is, doesn't matter if you have an SSL certificate. In fact, you should nowadays. I mean, it's 2018. Folks should be running with an SSL certificate. We have, as Tom mentioned, the largest proprietary database of known malware. What that allows us to do is very quickly scan an entire website looking for that bad stuff and remove anything that doesn't belong. And if you're familiar with the term PUA, potentially unwanted applications, we're actually scanning for those scripts, and anything that's in that gray area, then we'll actually notify you of the issue, and we'll err on the safe side. Hey, this looks a little peculiar, and prompt you for what you would like to do there. So we actually have a dedicated team, 24 hours a day, that's searching through all of these suspect items. So we have 12 million customers nowadays. Actually, I think quite a bit north of that at this point. And the benefit of having such a large customer base is there's a great network effect. So if customer 128,000 is infected with some brand new form of malware never before seen in the wild, we're going to find that, and we're going to document it, we're going to add it to our database, and then our entire customer base is instantly protected. So that 12 million number it's a big number in this space. We are the 800-pound gorilla. We are providing the best service in this area.
So you're scanning the website
Correct.
as a site. So where you go to the hosting and you're scanning from there?
So that's a great question. It's a tandem approach. In terms of the malware scan specifically, there's an external scan, and that's visiting the website as though a normal visitor would, just reviewing what a browser would see as a visitor. And then there's also the other piece that is connecting to the hosting platform via FTP, SSH, along those lines, and we'll actually scan the files themselves in that fashion, and that's where our automatic remediation comes into play. If we find a file with a problem, even if it was previously a good file and just has a little bit of malware injected into it, we can surgically remove that little bad part so that the website continues to function without downtime. And again, that's huge in this space. We're the first folks doing this, and we definitely have a leg up on.
Very few people do that, and certainly not at the scale that we're doing.
Correct, and certainly not at the maturity. We've been doing this for quite some time. We've integrated, as you saw in one of the earlier slides, we've integrated with some of the largest website hosting companies in the world. So we've been able to find the safest and most efficient way to do this. Yes?
So somebody's hosting, let's say, at GoDaddy.
Uh-huh.
Is there really a need to scan on the inside? Aren't they doing that for you?
So that's a really, really great question. And for that, I've got this lovely analogy. I have another slide deck that I love to pull out. You ever seen those puppy dog doors, the ones that you can install in a sliding glass door, so that without having to knock any walls down, you can install a doggy door to a sliding glass door. So it's a perfect example. GoDaddy's providing the housing, right? So you much like you would with real estate, you buy the house. It's got windows, it's got walls, and it's got a front and a back door, maybe a garage. Now, as they hand it to you, this is a relatively secure environment. The windows lock, the front door locks, the back door locks, and there is a level of security that we've all come to expect, and that is what you will get. But you'll notice with a house, much like with a hosting environment, their job is to secure the perimeter. They're not there to secure what's inside the house. They're not there to secure the modifications that you make to that house. So a great analogy is that doggy door. Sure, this was a safe environment before you actually installed anything. It was just an empty provision. You go and put that doggy door in, you're adding a feature. You're adding a new functionality that isn't warrantied by them. This is much the same way that when you install applications like WordPress, Joomla, CMS, portals, and so on, you're introducing new functionality that didn't previously exist. Hosting companies do not take responsibility for what you're doing at the application layer. That's code you introduced into the environment.
But what if you just like built your site
Mm-hmm.
on their tools?
So if you're talking about a WYSIWYG environment, like what you see is what you get, one of those builder platforms, there is a different type of security put into those. It's kind of like a walled garden. There's not a lot of damage you can do. I won't mention any names, but I have seen those compromised. We do have specific signatures for many of those web builder platforms. But in terms of those builders, generally speaking, you don't have the same flexibility as you would if you used like an open source application. Security-wise, there are different security considerations to be taken into account. A lot of those.
I'll also point out on that, I mean, those type of plays, that use case you just described would be typically linked to extremely small businesses.
Mhm.
Opposed to a larger one that has a whole bunch of more requirements, maybe proprietary applications, but yeah, just wanted to add to that. That's an important point. You know, I don't know if you're dealing with very small customers.
No, I was referring to my own.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
So I have clients who have their own home-built websites.
Mhm.
In these couple of cases, they're actually very large, and some of them have medical HIPAA data on them. For logins, do you have the ability to like go past if they give you a login for testing, go and test the internal applications for vulnerability?
I love that question. Are we able to get around, say, paywalls or user-authenticated areas of the website or web application? Yes. Now, that's the real purpose of that file-based approach, right? So yes, we do have that external scan where we're looking for malware on the front of site, but also equally, if not more importantly, we are scanning the files at rest, which of course are not prompting for a paywall or any type of user credentials. We have full access. So we're able to detect vulnerabilities, we're able to detect malware and remediate that malware.
I was thinking more along the lines of like internally SQL injection type issues and something similar to that you have to probe from a vulnerability perspective from the web interface. Files, you're not going to know a lot about them. These are mostly ASP.NET designs, custom code. You're never going to see this code anywhere else.
That makes sense, and I'm glad you clarified that. So from the external scan, obviously that is going to hit that wall. The external SQL injection and cross-site scripting vulnerability detection system is going to hit that wall. But we do something a little special there, which I'll touch on in just a moment. I think will answer your question.
And one little addition about systems behind load balancers as well.
So systems behind load balancers, that's an easy one. We will need direct access to those files at rest. So rather than accessing a load balancer, we would want access to one of the mirrors, or both of the mirrors behind that, or however many. And I'll come back to vulnerabilities in files at rest in just a moment. But you had brought up SQL injection and cross-site scripting, and I think that's really important. More broadly speaking, the top vulnerabilities out there. How do hackers get in? They get in because there are small flaws in these web applications. There's a group called OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. They've well documented the top 10 attacks. And our product suite is intended to block these top 10 attacks and many more. The top two, pretty consistently, are going to be SQL injection and cross-site scripting. Some of you may or may not be familiar with the term SQL or SQL. To give you some context, an SQL database is where a lot of your user data is most likely stored. Any type of credentials, any flags, any user-specific information is more likely than not stored in an SQL database behind the web application. So the consequences of having a vulnerability in that communication between the front-end web app and that database are that someone could potentially gain access to all of that data, modify that data, release that data to the public. Of course, we've been hearing a lot about that, for example, like the Equifax attack, or just trash the whole place. So that's very important. And likewise, cross-site scripting is another injection type attack that has a lot of similar consequences in terms of user interaction. So what we're doing is externally scanning for those vulnerabilities on a daily basis, and we will notify the client when we do find something. So we're actually running an active test and trying to harmlessly inject our own arbitrary code and see if there's any issues there. So once we're done with that process that's running on a daily basis, we provide a risk score. So to the client, it doesn't have to be this big complex thing. And the client doesn't need to understand all these things I'm mentioning, SQL injection, cross-site scripting. The point is we're being brought in as an extension to their team. The point is that we are the experts in this field and we're there to help them. We are endlessly accessible. In addition to the vulnerability remediation and detection, the malware remediation and the vulnerability detection, we also perform vulnerability remediation automatically for many of the most popular platforms. I mentioned a couple of them: WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, Magento. I'm sure you've heard of at least a couple of these. We are actually able to automatically patch those. So say they're running an older version, we can run a patch to ensure that the security fixes are applied and their website is protected until they can put that patch work it into the life cycle of their project, obviously.
The plugins which are the most vulnerable typically on WordPress.
That is more true than you probably realize. We definitely geek out on the plugins and themes section. I can tell we're going to get along.
I've never seen any of these sites get hacked, by the way.
Never? Never? Oh, okay. Yeah. Ran a big data project actually last year to document exactly where that was at, and the numbers were staggering.
How do you guys manage when the SSL versions change? I mean, what's like the big one coming in June right now? What's going to happen with in your end? Nothing? It doesn't affect you at all?
In terms of, what was the platform?
The SSL version.
Oh, SSL versions. You mean in terms of the PCI requirement?
The big push coming out for the security side of things?
If I'm correct, I think what you're referencing is the PCI requirement to phase out some of the older SSL ciphers.
Well, it's going to be out for anybody that has e-commerce just worldwide. Anything related to that, even Google is going to enforce it. You know,
so we're already planning ahead. We have the latest SSL ciphers integrated into all of our solutions. And we, along with that same time frame, I believe it's June, it's either May or June, where this is actually being enforced. We're ahead of the ball on this, ahead of the game. So not a problem. Already been integrated some time ago. Currently, we are supporting some of those legacy ciphers, but we will be discontinuing along with the required time frame.
And I have one more question. I think everybody would. So, in a nutshell, would you guys do some sort of sandbox, kind of monitor services? If anything happen, you take it in, create the remediation, and release it, correct? And release it back.
That's the basic premise, yeah.
Hopefully, we're trying to get more people to get ahead of the curve and be a little more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised still today, the majority of people have to experience pain before they take action. So in your example, it's exactly right. They get detection, and then they get remediation, and then eventually they get prevention. We're seeing a slight turn on that with people now because it's top of mind of a lot of businesses to say, hey, this is probably going to happen. Why I should at least do something to help prevent it, as opposed to just having an alarm system. Maybe more downstream than small businesses still because they're a little bit more cost effective. They just get an alarm system and maybe some form of remediation. But the prevention that I see in the mid-market enterprise, they're definitely looking at more of those robust solutions that can actually prevent, if not dramatically mitigate something bad from happening.
So do you guys only do it with websites?
Web applications in general. So the simple answer is yes.
365?
That wouldn't be, so no, we're focusing on HTTP, HTTPS, right? So generally speaking, websites, yes, would be our forte, but.
We do something very similar, but with that, we do a sandbox, sandblast for the Office 365 scenario, you know, 24/7 monitor through it, we find the remediation, we filter those emails, even they have viruses inside there, you know, filter it, clean it up, send it out.
Makes sense. Now, we don't play in the email space. There are some checks that we're performing on a daily basis, and that kind of segues well into my next piece here, and that's reputation management. One of the things we are doing with our external scan is performing lookups on those MX records to see if they're present on any spam blacklists, things like that, to make sure that they're, you know, ahead of folks not receiving their emails, for example, or getting that little warning at the top like this domain is untrusted. So we want to make sure that our clientele is notified ahead of time before they have an issue. We do that through the daily search engine blacklist monitoring, daily spam blacklist monitoring, and as sort of a canary, if you will, we've got the trust seal available. And the trust seal helps to instill that trust level. I know a lot of folks really love those little badges, but this one's actually a very good badge. It's active. If there is an issue, the badge will not appear. So it's a kind of canary, but, and that is we will not certify a website that has issues. Now, we're not going to go out and tell the client's visitor there's a problem here. You know, that our relationship is with the client. We're not going to display our name, but we're going to go ahead and notify the customer, the client, of the issue, make sure that it does get remediated, and then that badge pops right back up.
And when it does get suppressed, it's zero disruption.
No disruption.
Do the remediation of it?
So if it's in terms of malware or vulnerabilities, yes, we actually do perform remediation services. Huge part of our business. And then moving on to kind of our speeding things up and securing things from a preventative model here in this next slide. We do have what is called a web application firewall. This differs from a network firewall, and I think this is really important that we're all aware of the distinction between the two. Network firewall is the type of thing that a hosting company would deploy at the edge of their network in order to protect their infrastructure. It is performing what you would call packet filtering. So not to dive too deep into that, but it's not looking at the behavior. It's not looking at what's happening within those packets. It's just making sure that those packets, that traffic back and forth, is conforming to a basic set of rules. But they're not looking inside to see what the context and behavior is. That's where the web application firewall comes into play. When interacting with user-made web applications, it's very important that we're looking at context, the behavior of the visitor. That's what we do. So we're preventing these very high-level, very complex attacks by peeking inside real time, auditing that traffic, and ensuring that everything is cleaned. Now, if you know anything about network or server infrastructure, you're probably thinking, well, that sounds like a lot of work, a lot of cycles that may slow down the service. Well, in fact, our web application firewall is cloud-based. So instead of slowing down the website like an endpoint firewall would, or endpoint web application firewall, by being cloud-based, we're able to distribute this on our content delivery network. And I want to tell you a little bit about the robustness of this content delivery network. We have, now I wrote nearly, it is now 40. We have 40 globally distributed points of presence throughout the globe. So we're performing caching at this edge, if you will, both static and dynamic caching. So instead of slowing down the website with this auditing, we're speeding up the website. So on average, we're looking at over 50% gains. This is huge. Now, if you've worked at all in e-commerce, then you know that for every second, you're losing, what is it, like 20% of your traffic. I think it might even be a larger figure than that. So speed is huge. So you don't have to sacrifice speed in favor of security. You can have both, have your cake and eat it too. And another big one, for those of you that are bandwidth hawks, or you have maybe an AWS or Azure instance where you're paying for bandwidth at a unit rate, well, on average they consume over 70% less bandwidth. Now, we have flat rates, so we're not charging you for that bandwidth. So you're actually going to be saving money, most likely, especially on a large enterprise deployment. All of these caching directives are configurable. So if you have any concerns about certain parts of the website being a little sensitive, it's all configurable. And as I mentioned earlier, we do support SSL. We're blocking all of these attacks. And we have the lowest false positive rates in the industry. Now, taking a step back and just looking at this network map again here, I want you to picture, if you will, the largest DDoS attack ever recorded in history. You may have heard about this recently. GitHub actually had a very, very large attack that is now confirmed to be the largest DDoS attack ever documented. So if I recall correctly, that was in the 1 gigabit per second range, which was unheard of. Previous to that, it was, I'm sorry, 1 terabit per second range. Previously, it was a 600 gigabit range. Our network capacity exceeds 5 terabits per second. So even in the case of a world event DDoS attack, something that shakes the internet, literally slows the internet for the world, our data centers continue to function. Even if we lose, 2 data centers here due to a substantial attack, there's 38 more to take their places. So the website stays up throughout an attack. We're not going to null route you. The website doesn't go down. That is what we're here to function as. We are your defender, your shield. So by leveraging this large data center, we're stepping in between the visitor or attacker and your actual origin server. Any questions on that piece at all?
In the content delivery network, so you're acting like as a VPN, pretty much?
So short answer is no, but in essence, yes. So let me explain what I mean by that.
Let's say I have my cloud in Azure, or I have a private cloud, whatever that might be, or in a data center. So what you're saying there, you are securing the connectivity directly with that site, correct?
So we are, just to clarify up front, we are not verifying the connectivity of the origin server. So if the origin server does go down, which is, of course, not in our purview, that's with your provider, there will be a problem there. We're not doing a 100% copy of the website at our mirror. That wouldn't be the service. But rather, we are acting as a reverse proxy, yes. We are caching static assets and commonly requested dynamic assets. But we are preventing the website from going down due to attacks. Now, if you have a service outage at your provider, that would not be that's not what we're addressing with this product. Does that answer your question?
I'm just trying to find the exact application for it, how it will fit from the content delivery network.
So it's the content delivery network's main premise is acceleration, of course. And where that fits is with the static and dynamic caching, we're kind of reducing that the latency by bringing the content closer, right? So the use case would be, let's say you have an AWS instance and it's specifically in like the Seattle data center, okay? So you have a large customer base in India, let's say. So in India, you're going to have a bit of an issue with connectivity to Seattle, right? So what we do is we bring that content closer. We ensure that by kind of shortening, I don't want to say last mile because that's kind of a misnomer here, but we're shortening those last legs, making sure that the majority of that content is able to be delivered by proxy much faster. And that's where we see these bandwidth savings, of course, that we don't need to make as many requests back to the origin server, and we're able to deliver that content from our own resources. And then to circle back, I had mentioned doing a vulnerability analysis at rest. So another product that we do actually offer that I hadn't included in these slides is static application security testing. So that's actually another area that we focus in. So when we're looking at applications that may be behind a paywall or maybe behind an authenticated, some sort of authentication mechanism, we are not going to want to use external scanning. That's an area where you'll see static application security testing shine. That is something that you would do before deployment. So you take that application, run it in that sandbox environment prior to deployment, and then periodically thereafter as part of your secure development lifecycle. That is something we offer as well.
One of my biggest concerns is developers screwing up and leaving little vulnerabilities.
It happens.
On the maps.
You know, and it happens so often. I did a project a while back, and I hired one of the most talented developers that I knew, and he just made these beautiful, beautiful products. And what we found over time is that while he was a very talented developer, and you'll see this a lot, the most talented developer that makes the most beautiful and highly functional and performant products may not necessarily be a security expert. And that's why it's important to bring in this sort of product as an extension to their team. Because security is, unfortunately, still very niche. It's a very specific skill set. I've got certifications you've never heard of, right? And it's not something as broadly known as like a Cisco certified network administrator. Those are sharp guys, right? But that is a different field, and there's not a lot of clear distinction to the layman on where that skill set actually is, where it is in the scope. So that's why it's important that you bring in SiteLock as an extension to your existing team. So you don't need to replace any developers. We're just there to safeguard, make sure everything that they're putting out there is going to be tip-top shape. Give you a nice big report on everything that we found. Any other questions on the product piece here? All right, excellent, excellent. And just to recap on this beautiful little graphic here, what you're receiving here from this product set is detailed attack reports, automatic detection and triggering, proactive security and event management, fast and easy implementation. We're talking about deployment that takes 5 minutes in most cases. And if you have any trouble, we have 24/7 support available. Yes?
So, to resiliency of your network,
Mm-hmm.
we're using your CDN here. We're relying on you being up before the data even gets to the bus.
That is correct.
Do you have an SLA? How redundant is your systems? How have you designed them? What's the history been?
So the history is, it used to be a smaller network. It's a very large network now. It's one of the largest networks. So in terms of SLAs, we can get into the specifics, and we'll talk a little bit more about that one-on-one there. But to ensure the resiliency and redundant routing, we actually have acquired a number of Tier 1 partnerships with service providers. So that's kind of a key feature on the back end, since you asked about that, is having those contracts with top-level providers to ensure that our bandwidth, that our throughput is prioritized, that our throughput is able to reach its target with maximum speed. And we're talking about fiber-level providers here, backbone. And we have a number of those. So even if a provider goes down, you probably remember, about 4 years ago, there was a major level 3 outage, right? The East Coast couldn't communicate with the West Coast. It was very strange, and that went on for the better part of a day as part of a contract dispute. Well, that's why we have separate partnerships. Did it happen again?
Yeah, massive one last year.
Okay, so there we go. It happened again last year. So that's why it's important for us to have multiple Tier 1 partnerships. So we can talk in terms of redundant data centers. I mean, we've got 40. We could lose 20 and we still wouldn't be breaking a sweat. I mean, we'd be sweating about getting them back online, but the customer wouldn't be aware.
So I think we could share the SLA with you, so you can do a better comfort level. But we can tell you on the big base that we have more than Fortune 500 companies, more than 2,000 companies actually working with intelligence technology. So it's very mature, very proven, showing that.
Absolutely. Some of the largest websites on the web actually are supported with our technology. We're talking the big websites. We have several of those, and a lot of, as Tom mentioned, Fortune 500 companies, and they're not going down. So there's the redundancy of the data center, and there's the redundancy in the network transit. So we make sure that we have multiple partnerships in place in order to facilitate high-speed transit even during contract disputes between providers. Some of the key differentiations we have between us and other providers that overlap just a little bit. I want to point this out in terms of a very simple pie chart. So SiteLock is end-to-end web security. We have some other vendors that kind of play in a little bit of the same area on the CDN piece. We have some vendors that kind of focus on more traditional endpoint solutions, and some vendors that are a little bit more specialized. So just to give you an idea, we're performing end-to-end web security. We are performing, focused on the web applications themselves. So again, we're not installing anything to the endpoint. We are able to scale massively. We have the largest customer base in the industry. We have and provide access to real-time web-based traffic data and threat data. and we have a massive SME presence. And that's really kind of our bread and butter. Just to give you an idea of where it is we're playing around. And with that, I am going to pass this back on over to Tom.
Thank you, Logan. Nice job. And we just want to give you also another view. We had one slide that showed where we play with the stack, but this gives a much more broader perspective on some of the plays that you might know in the industry and actually where they kind of fall. That's why we wanted to kind of throw that up there. So we have a few more slides, and then I want to get into the program, which is obviously a big part of this, the reason why we're out here today. But why do customers, website owners, choose SiteLock? I mean, we have an extremely strong track record. Our team, the methodology that has gone in to the process within our organization, from inbound, outbound, our onboarding team, our support, our training academy, I mean, we really take this to heart. I mean, we've really built an organization and workflows to make sure that we're delivering the most amazing service possible for our partners and for that end user. Without a doubt, one of the strongest differentiator. The other thing is, you know, same thing. They don't want to have 4 or 5 different vendors. You know, they want to make sure that they can go to one vendor, have a consolidated view of all the different services that they're looking for across the whole gamut of detection and remediation and prevention and compliance is another driver. If you look at the customer feedback and some of the NPS scores that we provide, we give, you know, pretty strong visibility to our customers on, you know, where we are, where the areas of improvement. We're very transparent. I think one thing that hasn't come up, and it kind of goes back to the idea of the data that we have in our fingertips. We're the only one out there that have come out with a proprietary risk score. And let me just kind of go into that just for a few minutes of what that means. Because we're scanning all this data, we have a direct pulse on that online business to understand, you know, how fast are their website, what kind of builders are they using, do they have vulnerabilities, are they using Google Analytics? There's almost 500 different variables. I'll be happy to share that with you. And we have an internal proprietary way that we're scoring that, and we're actually able to produce a risk score of high, medium, and low. Again, one of the first moves that we're making out there, instead of being that grim reaper like I talked about in the beginning of this presentation on just being an alarm system and they're just pissed that something bad happened, they want to blame anyone, we want to get it out there and give, you know, your customers tools to understand what is their security posture, you know, and what are the actions that they should take to make sure that something bad doesn't happen based off of where they are in their online journey. Why do partners choose SiteLock? Again, out of the gate, we've been completely focused on providing strong value to our partners, rolling up our sleeves, understanding what their requirements are, building programs around certain verticals that tend to maybe deviate what's going on in the hosting industry, and literally changing things on the fly to make it work and make it resonate. Goes back again to the one-stop shop again. These guys having one throat to choke, being able to consolidate all these different services, getting better margins, and again, delivering a much better service by packaging and all these, sending it out to their clients, and obviously having that client be able to take that single view. There's not a partner out there that has APIs as robust as SiteLock that can manage the entire life cycle of the product. Another strong reason why we've done so well in the service provider space. The other thing that we're doing on behalf of our partners is we're able to collect reports, you know, based off of a customer and come up with a nice, you know, pretty PDF that literally will show on a weekly basis what happened. What did you guys do for me? How many bots and threats did you block? Did you remediate anything? And to be able to give them something tangible that they can have in their hands to say, you know what, I am paying for this, because security, it's like, okay, you're paying for something, and the value is you get no business disruption. At least this is also saying, hey, you haven't had any business disruption, but here's why, Mr. Customer. So having that tangible piece has gone a long way, and this has been extremely well received from the marketplace today. And a couple other things, the pot of payouts you saw in there, I was even looking at it, is extremely strong. It's over 200 million payouts since 2008. We get it. We rely heavily on our partners. You are our channel. We want to make sure that you guys are not only just delivering an incredibly robust and quality, cost-effective product, we want you making money. So it's as simple as that. So the program overview, simple, generate interest. We will be as little or as much involved as you need. let us be an extension of the team. We will give you anything you need to engage in these conversations, from, you know, sell sheets, competitive matrix, videos. We'll be on calls. We will go on site. We are thoroughly committed to do whatever it takes to help you move this through the sales cycle. All we're asking you to do is, when you leave here today, go back and think about those 2 or 3 customers that might make sense, where maybe you can introduce a new product, you know, drive more ARPU, potentially retain that customer because maybe they are looking at security somewhere else and he doesn't take the other services he's already doing with you. Let us be part of your team. I promise you we'll be successful together.
Hey guys, and with that, I know there's a good amount of you in the room where, you know, you've got like good loyal customers you've had for a long time that, and you sold them their bandwidth, you sold them their hosted VoIP, you sold them their SD-WAN, maybe their 4G LTE, whatever else might be going on. Those type of customers are the type of people that you can easily go to and say, hey, we haven't talked about this in the past. I didn't really have this in my bag before, but now I do. They're not expecting you to be experts. They're just asking you to connect the dots, make some introductions, and go from there. And we're really excited about that upfront spiff as well as the residual component, which I'm sure comes in.
Yeah, and that's absolutely going to be coming.
Very lucrative opportunity for
Yep.
the room.
And just to kind of play off of Kevin's comments there, yeah, 100% we want to be an extension of the team. We want to help. We are there to be on the first call. You can want to just send a soft lead over to us and have us drive it. However you want us to operate, we are there. We're accessible, we're flexible, we're gritty. That's how we got off the ground in the service provider space. I mean, I can tell you, and I think Logan attests to, I mean, I'm going to give you guys all my business cards, you know, my mobile. That is my lifeline. And I promise you, in any opportunity, I will be available. If I'm not answering that phone, 2 things are happening. You know, I'm either on a plane or I'm dead. You know, and hopefully it's the former. My family will probably appreciate that as well. But I'm serious about that. I've built my name in the industry by actually being accessible and making my partners, you know, extremely successful, both from a profitability perspective, but equally important, driving the right value to their end user. So a couple ways. There's this dedicated line here that will go to a team, a dedicated email. I'm also going to give you my business card, so you will have direct access to myself, to brainstorm, to introduce me to a few accounts, whatever you need, to tell me you want me to come back and go on site and do another training, whatever it takes. I'm not saying that we know everything going into the space right now, because again, this is a pivot for us, but I promise you what we don't have, we will. What we don't know, we will. We're highly committed to make this work, and we're extremely excited to work with TCG to make that happen. The last, what's in it for you, right? So we understand that we have to have this highly motivated. So 200% is a spiff that we'll be running for the short term, at least 6 months. If we see that this is working, we're starting to get a lot of traction. This is something that we're absolutely open to extending. Then obviously the generous payouts that TCG already does. So in the spirit of being giving your time back, I will stop. I can address any questions. Let me start there. Any questions? Do you see some opportunity here to go back to your customers and potentially open up those channels? I'll take that silence as a yes. Yes. Right, perfect. Excellent. Well, listen, thank you for your time. Logan, thank you for your assistance. And again, Jeff's here too. We're going to hang out for a little bit. Please feel free to come up and ask us questions, and please grab a business card. Back over to you, buddy.
Thank you.